Hola, hello, I am Pepe the King Prono Guy.
Oh, that's so f***ing cool. And that's how we completely destroy a power board on a Leader 120. Nice.
Alright, nice and buttery. Yummy. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to put ButterFlight on a whoop for our optimal flight settings. What we're going to need is one computer, one tiny whoop or whoop class, and one USB. Before we get started, let's talk about some things. So, in most cases, you're going to hear and you're going to find that the best way to fly your whoop is in angle mode. Now, I know that defies everything you hear about, like, you gotta be flying in air mode and yada yada yada. Well, here's the great thing about the RC hobby. You can do whatever you want. You can fly however you want. You can fly in horizon, you can fly in angle, you can fly in air mode. Whatever you want to do. A lot of times, 5 inchers, bigger quads, 3, 2, 5 inch, that you're going to be able to perform a lot of tricks in. You can do some tricks in whoops, but you know, and maybe somebody who's stellar out there can do them all. But in most cases, you're going to fly around, explore, poke around, maybe zip around, race style around your house. And that's going to be done best in angle mode. And again, you can watch video after video, and even people that are insistent on air mode find themselves flying in angle mode because it is simply a faster way to do it. Now, the other thing about our hobby is our hobby came from kind of like the days of street skateboarding. You know, it was an alternative sport, wasn't big. It was about doing what you wanted and enjoying it, and even the products levels, you know, like skateboarding was, you know, millions of frames and motors and all the stuff to choose from. No way's the right way, or there'd only be one thing made. So go about doing things the way you want to. And just like this, I'm going to show you how to set up, you know, what's considered a really good tune for these tiny whoop, these brushed motors in angle mode. I'll show you air mode as well. But again, I really don't like the tune I'm showing you in here. It's not really what I would tune. So besides the PIDs, you know, set the PIDs in air mode like I have them as a base, and then do your rates and stuff more along the lines of how you normally fly when you go to do that. But this is based on Project Mockingbird, which is a project that is already out there that you can check out. Someone else, yes, put all the effort and time, and I will link that in the description below in order to show you the full thing, and you can check that fully out and maybe branch off in your own way. But we're going to do it in ButterFlight, and keeping to the Whoop theme this month, I am giving away a DIY Whoop kit. Look for that in the upper right hand corner, but let's get started on setting up our Whoop. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that we have ButterFlight loaded on our PC and that we've plugged our whoop in with the USB. Make sure you have those drivers that I show you right there in the middle. You probably do if you're already using Betaflight or have ButterFlight loaded. If not, make sure you load those. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the CLI in order to get our version, and we're going to get our dump. So you're going to get that little message that says there's a ButterFlight version if it's a Betaflight you have on there. That's fine. Type in version, press enter, get your board, what kind of board you got. This is an omnibus. The next thing you want to do is type in dump and then press enter. And if you don't know this, what it's going to do is it's going to dump all the configuration you currently have on your quad. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it all the way up to the word dump. You cannot use dump and just take it up to the name of the craft. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to put it in my dump file, which I keep a Word doc, a notepad doc on my desktop for dumps. And I'm going to dump it into there at the bottom usually, and you can even date it after your crafting if you want, if you're just keeping a running list in order to backtrack to. And then I've already got it, so I don't need to save it, but you would save it. The other thing you can do is press that save to file in the right hand corner, maybe make a folder of dumps, label it the quad, I put dump and then the date, and save it, and that will save you a copy of all your dump information that you typed in on the screen. So you're going to get that version at the top and everything. So it's best to do it right after these two steps to minimize what you're getting in that file. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to flash the firmware so we can get ButterFlight on. Up at the top's where you select your board. We're going to go down and I'm going to flop around until I find Omnibus, like I don't know alphabetical order. We're going to set Omnibus. I already have show unstable releases on. Currently they're not putting those up. They're just putting their stable releases up. So you may want to make sure you have, if you want to mess with unstable releases, have that on. If not, shut it off and get the newest stable release. Next thing I'm going to do is load the firmware locally. It'll say when it's loaded it locally, and that's just bringing a copy down to your machine. And then we're going to flash the firmware. And this is loading ButterFlight on and erasing Betaflight. This process is relatively quick. And there we go. Now, if anything should go wrong, of course, you can take it back to Betaflight at any time. Just do the same process in Betaflight and flashing, and then just load your dump back in. So next thing I'm going to do is go into ButterFlight, in the CLI again. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste our dump in and press save when it's done to save our dump before we put in the Kalman filter. It's recommended you do that in chunks. Things can go wrong. I've never had anything go wrong, so I just always do it in full. Next thing we're going to do is grab the Kalman filter script code there, the code, to the first save, and we're going to go back into the CLI. We're going to paste that in. Press enter, and this is going to do the first part of it. And then we're going to grab the second part there that's set in gyro, and we're going to copy it. We're going to go into the CLI again one more time. We're going to paste that in and press enter. Make sure after anything you change, if you alter an individual setting or when you've done your dump, make sure you type in save and enter to save that. So now we have our old information in and our settings for Butter turned on. So the first thing we're going to do is go into configuration. We're going to turn on the motor P WM speed separated from the PID speed. We're going to change the motor PWM frequency to 1600 from where it was at 480. Motor stop is on. I'm going to change the minimum throttle because I don't believe it really needs to be that high, down to 1040. I was monkeying with my field trimming, which you can see way out of whack because something was wrong with my controller. And I'm going to change those shortly back to 0. But we're going to change the gyro frequency to 4 kilohertz. I have arming at 180. That is the basically set small angle to 180. You can do that in the interface here instead of typing that in. So you can personalize it, of course, now. Put the name you want to show up in your OSD. I don't mess with camera angle. My receiver's already set up for S-Bus. We don't have a barometer, so we're going to shut that off. Now the only thing, like I don't leave air mode on because I do show line of sight and things like that when I'm doing stuff. So I'm shutting air mode off, and I'm going to put it on a switch, and that's going to be important later too. So go ahead and shut air mode off. Make sure anti-gravity on and dynamic filter is on. We don't have a beeper in the one I'm using, so we can go ahead and shut all them off, or you could just flat out ignore it, because even if they're on, you're not going to get a beep. So what's the difference? I chose to turn it off. We should be set, and we're going to save and reboot. So next thing we're going to go into is the ports, and that's just to verify the ports are what I had them as when I put my dump back in. Now, it's always worth, if you can get in, go into BetaFlight first, maybe take screenshots of each screen if you think you're going to have a hard time remembering what ports they're on, or if you don't feel the dump's going to work, but it usually does as long as you remember to do the dump. I'm going to change my voltages because this is using HV batteries, so I'm going to set my maximum up to 4.4. I'm going to change my minimum. Your minimum will usually set a lot higher than that, so I'm shutting mine down to 2.7 because when we get the pull on the battery from punches, it doesn't mean our battery is dead. It just means it's drawing down pretty hard. So I don't want all those warnings flashing and such if until my battery's dead. Not dead per se, but until I know it's actually low. So the next thing we're going to go into is PID tuning. So you're going to want to set up a couple profiles here. I didn't do Horizon, but I will explain what it is. They tell you to make 3 profiles: rate profile 1, rate profile 2, and rate profile 3. But for rate profile 1, you're going to see some crazy numbers here. But this is to counteract those brushed motors. So we're going to put 90 in roll proportion, 110 in integral, and we're going to put 60 into the D. And for pitch, we're going to change the pitch to, again, a pretty extreme number, but remember, this isn't your brushed quad. We're going to put 100 in there. We're going to put 130 in the I on pitch, and we're going to put 60 in the D on pitch. We go on to yaw, and we're going to make that P at 190. We're going to make the I at 120, and then we're going to start looking at our other rates. The angle strength, and we're going to change that from what usually is 50 to 80, and for Horizon we're going to change that to 30 with a transition of 25 for Horizon. We're going to change our angle limit to 60. And then we're going to go into our RC rates. For roll and pitch, we're going to set that to 221. Again, extreme, I know, guys. And for yaw, we're going to set it at 207. 206. The next thing we're going to do is super rates. We're going to knock those all down to 0. Then you can see on the side that we're linear. No arc at all, but that's fine for the moment. So we're going to go ahead and save. Next thing we're going to do is set up our next profile, which if you want to use Horizon, it would be Horizon. For me, it's going to be air mode. And this is where we start working our degrees per second back in. Now you leave the PIDs alone. Well, we're going to move the RC rate up to 101. We're going to then move our super rates up to 80 on the roll, 80 on the pitch, 80 on the yaw. Now you can see we have a bit of a less active area in the center, and then on our endpoints we get more reaction. This isn't really the setup I would normally use. Normally mine's a bit different. I would suggest using not your own PIDs, but your own rates then afterwards, your super rate and such, to more you're accustomed to, and then start dialing from there. Again, we're not going to use air mode much. If it's a bigger whoop and you're going to do stuff outside, that's fine. But whooping's more about zipping around and so on. I'm going to make a slight adjustment to mine for my arc and move it up to 83. But then we should be able to save that one. And Horizon and Air are going to pretty much use the same thing. So if you were going to do a second as Horizon and a third for Air, you pretty much would do your same Air setup on that. So next thing we're going to get into is the filters. You want to make sure it's on PT1, and you want to make sure that all of these notch filters are off. So just usually they're blue, just flap them over there till they're gray and save that out. And now we're done in PIDs. So save it out and we'll check our receiver. There's not a whole lot to go here. Make sure your receiver's on and going. High stick, you know, you're going to push pretty hard on a whoop. So I changed my high stick threshold to 1950 and make sure my low stick is at 1025. And then we save out. Next thing we'll do is we'll set up our switches and modes. Mine's already set up. I always use ARM on aux1. I use my angle and air modes on my second switch. And if you know you were doing something that you're going to try to turtle mode in, of course you have your aux3 or whatever you might do. We have no beeper, might be on aux3 for you if you have a beeper, but we don't have that, so we're done. Save, moving on. Soon I'm going to be making another video to show you how to burn in brushed motors. It's recommended that you burn in or wear in or whatever you want to call it yourself the motors on a brushed. So inside here in ButterFlight, just like BetaFlight, you have an area where you can take your props off, plug in a battery, and work the motors. It's recommended that you do 3 packs worth, 4 if you want to take it one further, and you know, alternating the speed of your motors before you fly them on a normal basis. You can, you know, basically throw it to mid throttle and just let them ride until your battery gets to, you know, your 3.4, and then shut it down and let it cool down, and then go to the next. You do want to punch it a bit and such, but you don't want to overheat your motors. But we'll get more into that in another video. So then we're just going to set up our OSD. This QX65 had RSI on from the factory. I have no idea why it doesn't have RSI to my knowledge. So just going through that. That's personal preference, no big deal. No black box, of course. CLI, we've got nothing left to do. And we are set as far as that goes. So for the last step, I'm going to show you how to set up switching your rate profiles via your auxiliary switch when switching your modes. So if you had it on a 3-position switch and you were doing angle, horizon, and air, you could do 3. I'm going to do 2 because I'm using angle and air. So the first thing you do is it's kind of an if-then statement, if you understand what that is. So what you're doing is you're saying, when I switch auxiliary 2 from this range on this part of the scale, so you want to make this match what you put in your modes. So my angle mode was on the left-hand side of this bar on auxiliary 2. So what I want to do is set the rate profile selection, as you see on the right, to the first slot, which is the rate profile 1 that I had on profile 1. So we move the bar just like we did in modes to the far right, which is my air mode, on aux2 in the first column, set that to slot 2, which is rate profile 2, which was the air mode profile we set up, and then we're going to want to set the far hand channel to auxiliary 2. So I know that seems redundant, but what we're saying is on that switch, when we flip it to that area, it's going to change it to the rate profile I created for angle mode and air mode on the second one. Just double checking to make sure I'm not crazy that is where I have those. I have a short memory. Just verifying, yep, that's what I did. That's what I did. That's my profiles, and save them out. And there you have it. That's your Primo Blue Falcon, Project Blue Falcon setup for angle mode and air mode. But again, with everything air, you're going to need to make a little adjustments for your fly style because it is your style. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And that's that, guys. The last part we need to do is in the radio. So first you want to make sure you're on the right model. Scroll through your model. I'm using the QX7. And then you're going to want to page through that until you get to mixer. Once you get to mixer, go down to throttle, which on mine is on channel 2. And you're going to want to insert after. Change your source to aileron. So what you want to do is go down to the weight and change that to 30. Click enter on that. Then you're going to want to scroll down to curve. You're going to want to change curve to function. And then change next to function to what is a pipe or a line with an X in the middle and then a line, which is absolute. Then you're going to go down to switch, click that, and then click the switch in the direction you want the switch to be engaged, which in my case for air mode is down. Then you're going to want to add one more. The source this time being your elevators. We're going to set that also to 30. Going to change the curve once again to function. We're going to change the next to it to absolute, just pipe X pipe. And then we're going to put it on the switch again in the down position for me. Exit. So there you go. Your whoop is now all nice and buttery. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, tell your friends, get on Stu's Discord and say my name, tell them my channel, tell them we're doing giveaways, all that good stuff. Thank you guys. Happy flying. Spoiler alert, the next review is going to be the HDLRC Hornet 120mm. Stay tuned.